The first thing they noticed wasn't her Harvard MBA, or the fact that her trust fund could buy the entire airbase twice over. It was how she held the flight stick during her qualification run, delicate, almost reverent, like she was cradling something sacred. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Hammer Rodriguez watched through the control tower's reinforced glass as the sleek F-35A Lightning II lifted off runway 7, piloted by someone who shouldn't have been there at all. Captain Vivienne Trust Fund Ashworth, call sign courtesy of Staff Sergeant Kelly, who had zero patience for rich kids playing soldier, banked the aircraft into a perfect climbing turn. Too perfect. Rodriguez frowned, adjusting his headset as static crackled through the comm system. Something about this didn't add up. Ashworth's file read like a contradiction wrapped in designer flight suits. Stanford Aeronautical Engineering, summa cum laude. Harvard Business School. Family net worth somewhere north of 8 figures. Yet here she was, pulling 6GS like she'd been born in a cockpit. Tower, this is Rookie One, requesting permission to demonstrate evasive maneuvers, came Ashworth's voice, crisp and unflappable despite the crushing forces trying to squeeze consciousness from her skull. Rodriguez exchanged glances with his weapons systems officer. In 18 months of training elite pilots, he'd never heard someone sound that composed during high-G maneuvers. Most rookies were grunting like wounded animals by now, fighting just to stay conscious. Ashworth sounded like she was ordering coffee. Negative Rookie One. Maintain standard flight pattern. This is evaluation, not an air show. But something was happening in the sky that made Rodriguez's veteran instincts prickle. The way Ashworth's aircraft moved, fluid, predatory, almost dancing through the desert thermals, spoke of hundreds of flight hours that shouldn't exist. Her official records showed civilian flight training, a few weekend warrior sessions in T-6 Texans. Nothing that should produce this level of aerial precision. Hammer, you seeing this? Major Patricia Ghost Chen appeared at his shoulder, binoculars trained on the distant aircraft. That's not standard evasive flying. Rodriguez watched as Ashworth executed a barrel roll so smooth it looked choreographed, followed immediately by a split-S maneuver that would have challenged pilots with 5 years of tactical experience. His jaw tightened. Either this billionaire's daughter was some kind of prodigy, or there were gaps in her file big enough to fly a squadron through. The radio crackled again. Tower, Rookie One requesting immediate emergency descent. I'm reading multiple bogies inbound from the southwest, approximately 40 miles out and closing fast. Rodriguez's blood went cold. There were no scheduled exercises today, no friendlies in that sector, and according to his radar screens, the sky was completely empty. Rookie One, our screens are clear. Repeat, no contacts on. The alarm started screaming before he could finish the transmission. 12 red dots materialized on the radar display like ghosts becoming flesh. The control room erupted into controlled chaos. Airmen rushed between stations, voices overlapping in rapid-fire military efficiency. Rodriguez felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the same sensation that had saved his life over Baghdad, over Kandahar, over a dozen other places where death came from clear blue skies. How the hell did she see them before our systems? Ghost muttered, her fingers flying across the radar controls, trying to isolate whatever frequency signatures had appeared from nowhere. Rodriguez keyed his microphone. All units, this is Tower. We have multiple unidentified aircraft inbound. Threat assessment in progress. Rookie One, what's your fuel status? Full combat load, Colonel. Ready to engage. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Rodriguez stared at the tactical display, watching those 12 red dots converge on their position with the inexorable precision of a planned attack. Standard protocol demanded he vector all training aircraft away from potential combat. Get them safely on the ground while scrambling the alert fighters, F-22 Raptors that could be airborne in under 4 minutes. But 4 minutes might as well be 4 hours when dealing with threats moving at Mach 2. Negative Rookie One. Return to base immediately. We're scrambling Raptor flight to intercept. Colonel, with respect, they'll be in missile range in 90 seconds. I'm in position to engage. Rodriguez closed his eyes. Everything about this violated procedure. Ashworth was a trainee, brilliant maybe, but untested in combat. Her aircraft carried training ordnance, not the full weapons package needed for serious air-to-air engagement. And there was still the nagging question of how she detected incoming aircraft when the most sophisticated radar systems in the world had shown empty sky. Sir, Ghost's voice cut through his internal debate. Bogies have increased speed, ETA 60 seconds. The tactical display showed 12 hostile aircraft in perfect attack formation, their transponders dark, their intentions unmistakable. Rodriguez watched Rookie One's icon, a single blue dot against an incoming tide of red, and realized he was about to make a decision that would either save lives or destroy careers. Rookie One, you are cleared to engage. Repeat, cleared to engage. Good hunting. Copy that, Tower. Rookie One going weapons hot. The change in Ashworth's voice was subtle but unmistakable. The polished Harvard MBA tone vanished, replaced by something harder, older, forged in places that didn't appear on any official record. Rodriguez found himself holding his breath as the single blue dot accelerated toward 12 red ones, David racing toward a squadron of Goliaths. What happened next would either validate his gut instincts or end his career in spectacular fashion. Vivienne, Trust Fund. Ashworth pulled the F-35A into a steep climb, feeling the familiar embrace of G-forces that had once been her closest companion in another life, another identity. The aircraft responded like an extension of her will, precisely calibrated, lethal, beautiful in its mechanical perfection. Through her helmet's advanced display system, the 12 incoming hostiles appeared as geometric threats overlaid against the desert sky, their heat signatures painting them as clearly as if they were marked with bullseyes. Multiple contacts bearing 270, range 25 miles and closing, she reported, her voice steady despite her pulse hammering against her throat. Designating targets Alpha through Lima, entering engagement envelope now. The radio crackled with Ghost's voice from the tower. Rookie One, those are advanced fighters. Recommend you maintain defensive posture until Raptor flight arrives. Vivienne almost smiled at that. Advanced fighters. If only they knew what she'd faced before, in skis above places that officially didn't exist, flying missions that never happened. The trust fund story was perfect cover. Who would suspect a billionaire's daughter of being anything more than a privileged dilettante playing at military service? Negative, Tower. I have a clear firing solution on lead elements. Her fingers found the weapon system's controls with muscle memory that predated her current identity. The F-35A's internal weapons bay opened with mechanical precision, revealing AIM-120C AMRAAM missiles that hummed with electronic readiness. 25 miles became 20, then 15, the gap closing with mathematical inevitability. The lead hostile fired first, a long-range missile that appeared on her threat display like a flaming dart aimed at her heart. Standard evasive action would mean defensive maneuvering, buying time for backup that might arrive too late. But Vivienne Ashworth hadn't survived 3 classified conflicts by playing things safe. She dove. The plummeted toward the desert floor, pulling negative GS that would have incapacitated most pilots. The incoming missile, programmed for standard intercept patterns, overshot its target as Vivienne used gravity and the Earth itself as weapons. At 5,000 feet, she pulled out of the dive with a brutality that stressed the aircraft's airframe to its absolute limits, simultaneously launching 2 AMRAAMs at the lead hostile aircraft. The first missile found its target in a brilliant orange explosion that painted the afternoon sky. The second took out the wingman 3 seconds later. Splash 2, she called, banking hard to avoid return fire from the remaining 10 aircraft. Rookie 1 has 2 confirmed kills. The radio exploded with chatter. In the control tower, Rodriguez watched his tactical display with a mixture of awe and growing suspicion. 2 advanced enemy fighters had just been eliminated by a pilot who supposedly learned to fly in weekend civilian programs. Rookie 1, how copy on threat assessment of remaining hostiles. I count 10 remaining, approaching in 2 elements of 5. Lead element is switching to close-range engagement. They're good, but they're predictable. The sky became a three-dimensional chess game played at supersonic speeds. Vivienne rolled inverted, using the sun as cover while she lined up her next shot. The hostile aircraft were indeed advanced, some variant of the Russian Su-57, their stealth characteristics making them difficult to track on conventional radar. But stealth meant nothing if you knew how to read the signs, how to anticipate movement patterns developed in training programs she'd studied during another lifetime. Her third AMRAAM caught an enemy fighter attempting a climbing turn, the explosion visible even from the control tower 15 miles away. The fourth missile missed as its target executed a defensive barrel roll that spoke of excellent pilot training. Splash 3, Vivienne reported, her breathing steady despite pulling maneuvers that would have redlined most aircraft. 7 remaining hostiles, regrouping for coordinated attack. What she didn't report was the familiar sensation building in her chest, not fear, but a cold, predatory calculation that had once made her the most effective pilot in a squadron that officially never existed. The money, the family name, the carefully constructed identity of privileged incompetence, all of it fell away as she became what she'd always been underneath the facade. A killer with wings. The remaining 7 hostiles had learned from their comrades' fate. They split into 3 groups, attacking from different vectors simultaneously. It was a textbook pincer movement, designed to overwhelm a single defender with multiple threat axes. Against most pilots, it would have worked. Vivienne wasn't most pilots. She selected her remaining AMRAAMs and fired them in rapid succession, not at individual targets but at calculated interception points, where geometry and physics would do her work for her. The missiles arced through the sky like guided lightning, seeking heat and motion with electronic persistence. 2 more explosions painted orange flowers against the blue canvas of desert sky. Splash 4 and 5, she called, simultaneously diving to avoid cannon fire from the remaining aircraft that had closed to gun range. 5 hostiles remaining, engaging close combat. The F-35A's 25mm cannon spun up with mechanical hunger. Close-range dogfighting in modern aircraft was supposed to be obsolete. Beyond visual range missiles and advanced radar systems made it a relic of previous wars. But when stealth fought stealth, when electronic countermeasures neutralized smart weapons, combat sometimes devolved to its most primitive form. One pilot's skill against another's, separated by nothing more than reflexes and the willingness to die for victory. Vivienne had always been willing to die. It was living with the consequences that had proven more difficult. She pulled the Lightning II into a vertical climb, afterburners painting twin trails of fire against the afternoon sky, drawing 2 pursuers into following her toward the sun. At 30,000 feet, Vivienne cut power and let physics take control. The F-35A hung motionless for a heartbeat, a moment of perfect stillness where the aircraft balanced between sky and earth, between ascent and the inevitable fall. The 2 pursuing fighters, committed to their climb, shot past her like bullets fired at a ghost. She rolled inverted and dove after them, the cannons targeting reticle settling over the trailing aircraft with mechanical precision. A 2-second burst of 25mm shells turned advanced stealth fighter into falling debris. The lead pursuer, realizing his mistake, tried to break left, but Vivienne had anticipated the maneuver before he'd even begun it. Splash 6, she reported, watching the second aircraft spiral toward the desert floor trailing black smoke. 3 remaining, regrouping at my 6 o'clock. From the control tower, Rodriguez watched his tactical display with something approaching reverence. In 7 minutes of combat, this supposed rookie had eliminated half of an advanced enemy squadron using tactics that belonged in staff college textbooks. The remaining 3 hostiles were maintaining distance now, clearly recognizing they faced something beyond their operational parameters. Rookie 1, remaining hostiles are withdrawing to the southwest. Do you wish to pursue? Negative, Tower, let them run. They've delivered their message. The calm certainty in Ashworth's voice sent chills down Rodriguez's spine. Message. As if this entire attack had been some kind of test, some kind of announcement. He watched the 3 surviving hostile aircraft disappear from his radar screens, vanishing as mysteriously as they'd appeared, while the single blue dot that represented Rookie 1 began a lazy victory circle above the desert. Rookie 1, this is Tower. Outstanding work up there. Return to base for debrief. Copy, Tower. Rookie 1 returning to base. But as Vivienne banked her aircraft toward home, she knew the real battle was just beginning. The attack hadn't been random. It had been a message, a recognition, a calling card from people who knew exactly who she was beneath the carefully constructed facade of trust fund privilege. Someone had found her. After 3 years of hiding behind money and manufactured incompetence, her past had finally caught up with her. The question now was whether Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez and his team would be collateral damage or allies when the real war began. She keyed her radio one final time. Tower, Rookie 1 has additional tactical intelligence regarding hostile aircraft. Recommend we discuss offline. The silence that followed spoke volumes. In the space between words, careers would be made or destroyed, secrets would be revealed or buried deeper, and a billionaire's daughter would have to decide whether she was ready to become a weapon of war once again. The debriefing room felt smaller than usual, its fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across government tissue furniture that had witnessed 1,000 similar conversations. Vivienne sat across from Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez, Major Chen, and Colonel Patricia, Widow Nash, the base commander whose reputation for extracting truth from reluctant sources was legendary throughout the Air Force. Let's start with the obvious question, Colonel Nash said, her voice carrying the authority of 25 years in uniform. How did you detect 12 stealth fighters when our most advanced radar systems showed empty sky? Vivienne had prepared for this moment during the 40-minute flight back to base, rehearsing answers that contained enough truth to be believable while omitting details that would trigger security investigations she couldn't afford. But sitting across from 3 experienced officers whose instincts had been honed by years of combat, she realized that half-truths wouldn't be sufficient. Visual confirmation, she said finally. Contrail patterns inconsistent with scheduled air traffic, formation spacing, approach vectors that suggested coordinated movement rather than coincidental convergence. Rodriguez leaned forward. Captain, I've been flying for 15 years. I've never seen anyone identify hostile aircraft at 40-mile range using visual cues alone. Maybe you haven't been looking hard enough. The words came out sharper than intended, carrying an edge of authority that belonged to someone accustomed to giving orders rather than following them. Nash's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, a predator recognizing another predator. Your service record indicates civilian flight training and 6 months of basic fighter instruction, Nash continued. Yet today, you demonstrated combat tactics that would challenge pilots with 5 years of operational experience. Care to explain that discrepancy? Vivienne met the colonel's stare without flinching. Some people are natural pilots, some aren't. Natural pilots don't execute defensive barrel rolls at 6 GS while simultaneously calculating firing solutions for multiple targets. That level of performance requires training, experience, and, most importantly, previous combat exposure. The room fell silent except for the mechanical hum of ventilation systems. Vivienne could feel the weight of their scrutiny, three professional officers trying to reconcile the privileged dilettante from her official file with the lethal efficiency they'd witnessed in the sky. "Colonel," she said finally, "what matters is that 12 hostile aircraft attempted to penetrate our airspace, and now only 3 of them are still flying. The how is less important than the results." Nash smiled, a predatory expression that held no warmth. "Captain Ashworth, in my experience, the how is always important, especially when the how suggests capabilities that don't officially exist." Major Chen activated a wall-mounted display screen, revealing detailed radar tracking data from the engagement. The electronic record showed Rookie One's flight path as a blue line threading between red trajectories like a needle through fabric, too precise to be accidental, too sophisticated to be improvised. "This is your attack pattern during the first 30 seconds of engagement," Chen explained, her laser pointer tracing the route. "You dove to 15,000 feet, used terrain masking to break radar lock, then climbed to optimal firing position while maintaining defensive posture against incoming missiles. That's graduate-level tactical thinking." "I had good instructors." "Who?" The question hung in the air like an unexploded bomb. Vivienne realized she'd reached the decision point that she'd been dreading for 3 years, the moment when carefully constructed lies would either hold or collapse entirely. The trust fund story, the manufactured incompetence, the deliberate cultivation of underestimation, all of it balanced on her next words. "My father believed in practical education," she said. "Private instructors, advanced simulators, tactical training that went beyond basic civilian requirements." Rodriguez exchanged glances with Nash. "Captain, your father is Harrison Ashworth III, real estate developer and venture capitalist. His idea of tactical training is probably wine selection and tax avoidance. You'd be surprised what old money can buy when it wants to keep its children alive." It wasn't entirely a lie. Harrison Ashworth had indeed arranged for his daughter's advanced training, but not for the reasons they would assume. The real story involved contracts with private military companies, classified programs that officially didn't exist, and a father whose business interests extended far beyond real estate development. Colonel Nash stood and walked to the window, staring out at the flight line where F-35s sat like sleeping predators in the desert sun. "Captain, I'm going to be direct with you. In 30 minutes, I have to brief my superior officers on today's engagement. I need to explain how a rookie pilot eliminated 3/4 of an advanced hostile squadron using tactics that would impress Top Gun instructors." She turned back to face Vivienne, her expression unreadable. "I can write this up as exceptional natural talent combined with superior training, or I can dig deeper, request a full background investigation and potentially uncover whatever you're hiding. Your choice." The ultimatum was clear: acceptance or exposure, trust or investigation. Vivienne understood that her response would determine not just her own future, but potentially the lives of everyone on this base if her real enemies decided that too many people knew too much. "Colonel," she said, "I suggest you write it up as natural talent. Some stories are better left unexamined." Nash nodded slowly as if she'd expected that answer. "Very well, but understand this, Captain. If you're hiding something that puts my people at risk, I will find it. And when I do, your family's money won't protect you." The officers' quarters at Edwards Air Force Base weren't designed for luxury. But after 3 years of carefully maintained mediocrity, Vivienne found the Spartan functionality almost comforting. She sat on her regulation cot, cleaning her service pistol with mechanical precision while her mind processed the day's events. The attack hadn't been random. 12 advanced fighters didn't simply materialize over American airspace without extensive planning, intelligence gathering, and resources that belonged to nation-states or organizations with equivalent capabilities. Someone had wanted to test her, to force her into the open, to see if the legendary Phoenix still existed beneath the facade of privileged incompetence. Well, they had their answer. Her secure satellite phone, a device that officially didn't exist and connected to networks that weren't supposed to be accessible, vibrated with an incoming encrypted message. 3 words appeared on the screen: "We need you." Vivienne stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. She'd made her choice 3 years ago when she'd walked away from black operations and disappeared into civilian life. The money, the new identity, the carefully cultivated reputation as a trust fund dilettante, all of it had been designed to ensure that Sophia, Phoenix, Reyes would never have to kill again. But today's engagement had changed everything. She'd felt it the moment she'd gone weapons hot, the familiar rush of predatory calculation, the cold precision that had once made her the most effective pilot in Task Force Blackwind. 3 years of suppression hadn't eliminated those instincts, they'd only sharpened them. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Staff Sergeant Kelly standing in the hallway, his expression uncharacteristically serious. "Ma'am, Colonel Nash wants to see you in her office. Something about new orders." Vivienne followed Kelly through the base's maze of corridors, nodding the changed atmosphere. Personnel she passed offered respectful nods instead of the barely concealed contempt she'd grown accustomed to. Word of the engagement had spread through the base with military efficiency. Trust Fund had proven herself in the only currency that mattered to combat veterans. Nash's office reflected her personality: efficient, organized, decorated with unit citations and photographs from deployments that had shaped American air power for 2 decades. The colonel looked up from her computer as Vivienne entered, her expression revealing nothing. "Captain, I've received new orders regarding your assignment. Effective immediately, you're being transferred to a classified unit operating out of Nellis Air Force Base. Your transport leaves at 600 tomorrow." Vivienne felt cold certainty settle in her stomach. Nellis was home to advanced weapons testing, experimental aircraft, and units that didn't officially exist. Someone with significant influence had decided that Trust Fund's combat performance warranted closer examination. "May I ask what kind of unit, Colonel?" Nash's smile held no warmth. "The kind that recruits pilots with exceptional natural talent and superior private training. The kind that doesn't ask too many questions about backgrounds as long as results speak for themselves." The C-130 Hercules transport aircraft that carried Vivienne to Nellis Air Force Base the next morning was configured for classified personnel transport. No windows, minimal communication equipment, and 2 Air Force security specialists, who ensured that passengers remained isolated from external contact during flight. She spent the 3-hour journey reviewing her cover story, preparing for whatever interrogation awaited her at the most secretive military installation in the United States. Nellis sprawled across the Nevada desert like a technological oasis, its runways hosting aircraft that officially didn't exist and conducting missions that never appeared in public records. As the C-130 taxied toward an isolated hangar complex marked only with numbers that meant nothing to unauthorized personnel, Vivienne recognized the familiar architecture of black operations. Colonel Marcus Reaper Sullivan met her at the aircraft door, a man whose reputation in special operations circles bordered on mythical. Tall, lean, with eyes that had seen too much and a bearing that suggested lethal competence kept carefully in check. "Captain Ashworth," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. "Welcome to Task Force Phantom. I trust your flight was comfortable." "Adequate, sir." Sullivan smiled, an expression that held genuine warmth for the first time since she'd arrived at Edwards. "Captain, let's dispense with the formalities. I know exactly who you are, what you've done, and why you've been hiding behind trust fund incompetence for the past 3 years." Vivienne kept her expression neutral despite the adrenaline spike that threatened her carefully maintained composure. "Sir, I'm not sure what you're referring to." Sophia Phoenix Reyes, formerly of Task Force Blackwind, 67 confirmed air-to-air kills across 3 classified conflicts, the only pilot to successfully penetrate Syrian air defenses during Operation Nightfall. The woman who single-handedly eliminated a Russian squadron over the Black Sea while flying a damaged F-22. He began walking toward the hangar complex, expecting her to follow. "Your extraction from military service was creative. Fake death, manufactured civilian identity, family money used to purchase a new life. Very thorough, very expensive, very effective until yesterday." They entered a hangar containing aircraft that existed only in defense contractor proposals and fevered imaginations of military planners. Prototypes, experimental designs, weapons platforms that wouldn't enter service for another decade, if ever. "Sir," Vivienne said carefully, "I think you have me confused with someone else." Sullivan stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression shifting from professional courtesy to something harder, more direct. "Captain, 3 years ago, the United States military lost its most effective combat pilot to circumstances that remain classified at levels above my clearance. Yesterday, a supposed rookie demonstrated combat capabilities that match the legendary Phoenix's tactical profile exactly." He gestured toward the advanced aircraft surrounding them. "I don't believe in coincidences, and I have a mission that requires someone with your particular skill set." The briefing room deep within the Nellies complex was windowless, soundproof, and secured at classification levels that required special clearance just to enter. Vivienne sat across from Sullivan and 2 other officers she didn't recognize, studying tactical displays that showed global threat assessments marked with ominous red zones. "Gentlemen, ladies," Sullivan began, activating a wall-mounted screen that displayed satellite imagery of what appeared to be a military installation in mountainous terrain. "3 weeks ago, our surveillance assets detected the construction of advanced aircraft production facilities in a region that officially doesn't exist on any map." The images shifted, showing assembly lines for stealth fighters, advanced weapons systems, and infrastructure that would have challenged the capabilities of major industrial nations. "The aircraft that attacked Edwards yesterday were manufactured at this facility. They represent technological capabilities that exceed our current intelligence assessments of hostile air power." Vivienne studied the images with professional interest, noting defensive positions, apparent production capacity, and logistical challenges that would be involved in establishing such a facility. "Sir, what's our intelligence on personnel and operational capacity?" "Limited," admitted Major Rebecca Falcon Torres, one of the officers she hadn't been introduced to. "What we know suggests a combination of advanced technology, experienced personnel, and resources that indicate state-level sponsorship." Sullivan leaned forward, his expression intensely serious. "Captain, this facility represents an existential threat to American air superiority. The aircraft it produces are being distributed to hostile forces worldwide, potentially shifting the global balance of power." The tactical display shifted again, showing projected deployment patterns that painted red zones across multiple continents. "Our intelligence suggests that within 18 months, American air power could face opposition that matches or exceeds our current capabilities." "What's the mission, sir?" Sullivan smiled, the predatory expression of someone accustomed to impossible tasks. "Penetration, assessment, and if necessary, elimination. A single pilot mission using our most advanced prototype aircraft, carrying weapons that officially don't exist, targeting a facility that isn't supposed to be there." The room fell silent as the implications settled. It was a suicide mission disguised as tactical assessment, a one-way ticket to either legendary status or anonymous death in a place that wouldn't appear on any casualty reports. "Sir," Vivian said, "why not use a squadron? Overwhelming force, coordinated strike, multiple redundancies." "Because a squadron would be detected, intercepted, and destroyed before reaching the target. This mission requires stealth, precision, and capabilities that belong to only one pilot currently available to American forces." Sullivan's eyes met hers with absolute certainty. "It requires Phoenix." The name hung in the air between them like a challenge, like a resurrection, like a condemnation. The aircraft they showed her existed only in theoretical specifications and fever dreams of defense contractors pushing the boundaries of physical possibility. Designated X-47D, Wraith. It represented the absolute pinnacle of stealth technology combined with weapons systems that bordered on science fiction. "Single-seat, twin-engine, radar cross-section smaller than a sparrow," explained Dr. Sarah Kim, the chief engineer whose enthusiasm for advanced aviation technology was infectious. "Supercruise capable, adaptive camouflage and weapons systems that can engage multiple targets simultaneously." Vivienne walked around the aircraft, noting design elements that spoke of priorities beyond simple performance. This wasn't just a fighter, it was an assassination weapon, designed for missions that required absolute stealth and maximum lethality. "What's the operational range?" "With external fuel tanks and optimal flight profile, approximately 3,000 miles, without refueling." "Combat radius?" "Classified above your clearance level," Sullivan interrupted, "but sufficient for the mission parameters." The Wraith was beautiful in the way that apex predators were beautiful, elegant, purposeful, designed for killing with maximum efficiency. Its angular surfaces seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating an impression of something that existed between visibility and transparency. "When would you need an answer?" Sullivan checked his watch. "You have 6 hours to decide. If you accept, training begins immediately. Mission launch is scheduled for 72 hours from now." The timeline was impossibly compressed, even for black operations, which suggested that intelligence indicated some form of deadline, some escalating threat that required immediate response regardless of preparation time. "Sir, may I ask what happens if I decline?" Sullivan's expression shifted subtly, becoming more formal, more distant. "Captain Ashworth returns to Edwards Air Force Base, completes her training rotation, and probably spends the remainder of her military career flying transport missions. Sophia Reyes remains officially dead, and this conversation never happened. And the threat gets handled by someone else, using methods that may prove less surgical and more comprehensive." The implication was clear. Nuclear weapons, conventional bombardment, or other solutions that would turn the mysterious facility into radioactive glass, along with anyone unfortunate enough to be in the surrounding area. Vivienne stared at the Wraith, understanding that her decision would determine not just her own fate, but potentially the lives of thousands of people whose only crime was proximity to a target that needed to be eliminated. "I'll need access to detailed mission parameters, intelligence assessments, and extraction protocols." Sullivan smiled. "Does that mean you're accepting?" "It means Phoenix is considering coming out of retirement." The mission briefing lasted 14 hours and covered scenarios that ranged from surgical strike to desperate escape and evasion across hostile territory. Vivienne absorbed tactical data, weapon specifications, and intelligence assessments with the focused intensity that had once made her legendary among special operations personnel. The target facility, designated Factory 7 in mission documents, represented a level of technological sophistication that challenged American intelligence assumptions. Advanced manufacturing, defensive systems, and personnel that included former Russian, Chinese, and American military specialists who had disappeared from official records over the past 5 years. Your primary objective is intelligence gathering, Major Torres explained, indicating defensive positions on aerial photographs. Confirmation of production capacity, technology assessment, personnel identification. Secondary objective is opportunity targeting, Sullivan added. If presented with high-value targets or critical infrastructure, you're authorized to engage. Vivienne studied the approach routes, noting surface-to-air missile sites, radar installations, and patrol patterns that suggested professional military organization. Sir, this isn't some rogue operation. This is a state-level military installation designed to compete directly with American air power, which is why it needs to be eliminated before production reaches full capacity. The extraction plan was elegantly simple and almost certainly impossible. Single pilot, no backup, relying on stealth technology that remained largely theoretical and weapons systems that had never been tested in actual combat conditions. Sir, what's the realistic survival probability for this mission? Sullivan was quiet for a moment, consulting classified assessments that painted mathematical pictures of survival and death. Honestly, maybe 40% if everything goes perfectly, 20% if we encounter significant opposition, 5% if the technology fails at critical moments. And the mission success probability. If Phoenix is flying, 90% or better. The confidence in his voice was absolute, based on performance records that belonged to someone who officially didn't exist anymore. Sophia Reyes had never failed a mission, never lost a wingman, never backed down from impossible odds. But Sophia Reyes had also paid prices that Vivienne Ashworth was still trying to forget. I need 1 hour to consider. Take 2. This decision will define the rest of your life, however long that might be. Vivienne walked out of the briefing room knowing that she'd already decided. The moment she'd engaged those 12 hostile aircraft over Edwards, she'd been committed to this path. The only question was whether she had the courage to become Phoenix one final time. Outside the secure facility, the Nevada desert stretched toward mountains that looked like sleeping giants under the afternoon sun. Somewhere beyond those mountains, in a place that didn't officially exist, engineers were building aircraft designed to challenge American air superiority. In 72 hours, she would either stop them or die trying. She pulled out her secure satellite phone and composed a message to her father. The trust fund story was beautiful while it lasted. Thank you for giving me 3 years of peace. Then she deleted the message without sending it and walked back inside to accept a mission that would either make her a legend or ensure she joined the Phoenix in permanent retirement. Sir, she told Sullivan, when do we begin training? His smile was proud, relieved, and tinged with something that might have been regret. Welcome back, Phoenix. Training starts now. The X-47D Wraith responded to her touch like a living thing, its control surfaces adjusting to her intentions before she'd fully formulated them. After 6 hours of simulator training and 2 practice flights over restricted Nevada airspace, Vivienne felt the familiar bond between pilot and aircraft that separated competent aviators from lethal ones. The adaptive camouflage system requires constant input from pilot biometrics, Dr. Kim explained over the intercom as Vivienne executed high-G maneuvers that pushed both aircraft and human physiology to their limits. Heart rate, stress indicators, tactical awareness. The aircraft essentially reads your mind and adjusts its stealth profile accordingly. It was an intimate relationship between human consciousness and advanced technology, requiring trust that went beyond normal pilot training. The Wraith wasn't just responding to her commands, it was anticipating them, preparing for maneuvers she hadn't yet decided to execute. Phoenix, this is control. Execute evasive pattern Delta 7. Vivienne rolled the aircraft inverted and dove toward the desert floor, pulling negative GS that would have incapacitated most pilots. The Wraith's stealth systems adapted in real time, its surface characteristics shifting to minimize radar cross-section while maintaining aerodynamic efficiency.